Jnanitimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshulmilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Dapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Puteti Tanmayataya Tadavo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptastakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitram Sharanam Papana Vrinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanadike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we'll continue, hearing the beautiful Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda, I think chapter 11, and we begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj and our exalted Rupa Nugaguru Varga. All the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. So, yesterday we heard the conclusion of a description of Nityananda Prabhu at the house of Srivas Pandit. Beautiful pastimes. And there was a very nice sequence of verses by Vrindavan Das Thakur where he said that if in spite of hearing the glories of Nityananda one blasphemes him, then I kick the head of such a sinful person. Reminded me of Srila Prabhupada when he used to talk about the scientists. He said, kick on head with boot. The materialists, kick on head with boot. So and then in this way, Nityananda Prabhu resided in the house of Srivas. Lord Gauranga constantly protected him. Now, go on. One day, Ek Adina Nija Grihe Prabhu Vishrambar Vasi Ache Lakshmi Sange Parama Sundar. One day, the most enchanting Lord Vishrambar was sitting in his house with Lakshmi at his side. So this Lakshmi is Vishnu Priya. Both Lakshmi, Devi, his first wife, who left in separation when he went to East Bengal, and Vishnu Priya, they're both called Lakshmi in this because they're goddesses of fortune, right? Yogaya Tambula Lakshmi Paramaharise Prabhura Anandena Janaye Ratri Dishe. Lakshmi was offering betel nut to the Lord with great happiness. And the Lord was so pleased that he did not know whether it was day or night. Sometimes it's misunderstood because Mahaprabhu manifested as Nimai Pandit when he was married to Vishnu Priya, most often a very detached relationship, even formal. But it doesn't mean that their affection was any less. I mean, they're eternal, she's an eternal consort of the Lord. And so their affection is deeply internal. And once in a while it would manifest in some pastime like this. But otherwise, he was generally involved in, before his Sankirtan movement, he was involved in household duties and Brahminical duties, teaching, etc. Then afterwards, he was with his students, but also Sankirtan with his devotees, and very strict in the relationship. But here they're having a very sweet pastime where she's personally feeding him betel nut, and he's very absorbed in deep love. Vishnupriya is actually considered such an exalted devotee. Remember when Srinivas Acharya and Jiva Goswami both went to Navadvip, to Mayapur, both had the good fortune of meeting with Vishnupriya, and were so astonished by the depth of her love and her separation. It's described that nobody experienced separation from Mahaprabhu like Vishnupriya. And Jiva Goswami, he wasn't Goswami yet, but he didn't want to leave because Vishnupriya considered him like a son. Mahaprabhu had 3 devotees he considered his sons. Jiva Goswami had been offered to the feet of Mahaprabhu when Mahaprabhu was going to Ramakeli, through Ramakeli, on his way to Vrindavan. He did not end up going that time, but he went to see Rupa, Sanatan, Anupam, and they offered the son of Anupam, Jiva, at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, and so he said, I consider him my son. Kavi Kanapur also. And I think, was it Raghunandana or Raghunath Bhatta? Anyway, one other Raghu. It'll come to me later, as it always does. Never when you need it. So they were, and he did not know whether it was day or night. So happy in receiving her love. Whenever Vishwambara enjoyed pastimes with Lakshmi, Mother Saci felt great happiness in her heart. Knowing that this made his mother happy, the Lord spent time in the company of Lakshmi. So there you are, he does everything for the satisfaction of his devotees. At that time, the most restless Nityananda came to the Lord's house overwhelmed in ecstasy. He stood there in the mood of a child, without any clothes on. He was so absorbed in ecstasy that he did not feel shy before anyone. This is the state of an avadut. Remember the story in the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, when he was born, he immediately left. He was born, he manifested his birth as a 16-year-old boy, and he immediately left. He came back by the trickery of Vedavyas to hear the Bhagavatam, and then he continued to wander. And he would wander naked everywhere. When he first left, he was like that, beautiful 16-year-old boy, and he walked by a lake where young ladies were bathing. And they were bathing without clothing, but they weren't shy before him because they could see that he was completely transcendental and beyond all consideration of male or female. No recognition, no lust, nothing like that, absorbed in transcendence. Right? Whereas when Vedavyas came by, because he was dressed as a grihasta, they immediately covered themselves with clothing. I remember one time in Houston, around 2009, I went there to renew my passport and visa. First time I'd gone to America since 2002. And so went there, and because Gurudev was there, a big festival, and he was taking morning walks every morning in this big park. And one time, somebody asked him, what is the qualification to do bhajan and meditate in the mood of Ashtakalya Leela? In other words, in your hearing and chanting in your daily life, you're always meditating on Ashtakalya Leela, Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes, internal. And he said, you have to be like Shukadeva Goswami. No consideration of male or female. No sense of that identification. Only absorbed internally. Right? So, Nityananda stood there in the mood of a child. Like the 4 Kumaras, that's why they didn't want to change their form from little boys. They looked like little toddlers, but they're actually, greatly self-realized souls. But in that form, they could go anywhere at any time, and also they wouldn't be bothered by any because little children are not bothered by any kind of desire like that. So he was so absorbed in ecstasy that he did not feel shy before anyone. The Lord said to him, "Oh, Nityananda, why don't you have any clothes on?" Nityananda replied, "Yes, yes." The Lord said, "Nityananda, put on your cloth." Nityananda replied, "Today I will go." The Lord asked, "Nityananda, why do you act like this?" Nityananda replied, "I cannot eat anymore." Even Mahaprabhu bewildered, right, by his actions and statements. The Lord then inquired, "When I ask you something, why do you reply something else?" Nityananda replied, "I went there 10 times. In an angry mood, the Lord said, "I have no fault." Nityananda replied, "Mother Saci is not here." The Lord said, "Please be kind and put on your cloth." Nityananda said, "I will eat." Lord Nityananda was fully intoxicated with ecstatic love for Lord Chaitanya. He heard one thing and replied something else. In this way, he laughed as he wandered about. Nobody can understand what he was thinking, what his consciousness was, what he was hearing, how he's replying, what he's thinking. Even Mahaprabhu appeared bewildered by the beauty of Yogamaya and their Leela and their pastimes. The Lord then got up and personally put clothes on Nityananda. The son of Padmavati lost all external consciousness and smiled. If you've ever seen anyone who has lost all external consciousness, it's quite extraordinary. I've mentioned this before about, I didn't get the opportunity to see or associate with Srila Vaman Raj. By the time I got to see him, he was already in internal consciousness, that he was very rarely interacting with anybody externally. So every morning they would dress him and sit him in his room. He would sit there and do bhajan internally. I imagine sometimes chanting, but internal. And they said, we can all have darshan. And we all were brought in. And he was dressed very nicely. All he was doing was sitting there smiling. And you couldn't see what he was looking at. I mean, he just was not aware of any of us, at least it appeared like that, of our coming and going. We simply came by and honored him and requested his blessings. But it was quite an amazing thing to see him like that. In this world, if you saw somebody like that, you'd say they were, what is that? Catatonic, right? It looks like catatonic, where they're just awake, but they're not interacting or seeing anything. What they're seeing in the material sense, we don't know. In this sense, we know that whatever he's seeing is internal pastimes. In Svetadweep, in Braj, who can say? In any of his identities and all of his different identities as avatars and incarnations, he'd lost all external consciousness and smiled. He's called the son of Padmavati. That's his mother's name. On seeing these characteristics of Nityananda, Mother Saci smiled. Within her mind, she treated Nityananda as her son, Visvarupa. Because Visvarupa was actually an expansion. He left home, and then he left this world very near to the time when Nityananda was coming to meet with Mahaprabhu, finally when they were going to reunite. And then he merged into the body of Nityananda, Visvarupa. And so Mother Saci had this natural affection, non-different. Often Mother Saci heard Nityananda speak exactly like Visvarupa and saw him in the form of Visvarupa. Remember Visvarupa, the description of him, he was such a beautiful child and so self-controlled, so polite. Remember the story when the wandering mendicant Brahmana came and was he came to the house of Jagannath Mishra, Mother Saci, and they were very happy. He was such a great devotee of Krishna, and he had a Gopal deity. And he would offer whatever he begged. And usually he was in the forest, so he would offer some roots, some fruits, like that. And it was very rare that he could offer any cooked food to his deity, so he was very happy. And they gave him all ingredients, cleaned the kitchen, and he was prepared to offer this. And when he did, somehow or other, um, Mahaprabhu came, little Nimai, and stole the offering, right? And the Brahmin was very upset, very upset. And he thought, oh, well, I'll just offer some simple fruit. But Jagannath Mishra was very disturbed. We should receive our guest. Anyway, it's a somewhat long pastime, but it took 3 times. The final time, when he was once again, his offering was spoiled by the child, despite all the efforts made in the household to prevent him. Little Nimai made everybody go to sleep and once again came. The boy once again stole the offering, and this time the Brahmin was so disturbed, but nobody could hear him. And then he revealed his identity as Krishna and said, oh, you've been offering it to me the whole time. I am that same person you've been offering to. And you didn't realize it. You didn't realize it. But I've always been here, and I'm accepting your offering. And we have the same pastime in Braj, a very similar kind of pastime. And we've been together for so many lifetimes, right? And so, how did I get onto that? I forget. What was the connection between Visvarupa, Mother Saci? I can't remember. For some reason, there was a connection there. At any rate, I can't remember. But the pastime is that the pastimes of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda reflect the relationships not just in their Leela in Navadvip, but in their Leela in Vrindavan and in their Leela in other incarnations and other avatars. So Mother Saci naturally had the same affection for Nityananda because he had taken birth as her son as Visvarupa. He had that was intentional. From a pastime point of view, and to expand their pastimes, he appears separately in Radhadesh, Ekachakra, to Padmavati, and to, what's his father's name? Hadai Pandit. But actually, he appeared before Jagannath Mishra and Mother Saci appeared to them as their son as well as Visvarupa. And now Visvarupa was within him. All these incarnations are within him. And so her natural affection for Visvarupa was manifest. But she did not disclose this to anyone. She wasn't saying, oh, I feel like he's Visvarupa, She didn't. Feelings of prema are kept within the heart. Gurudev said they're like camphor. Camphor is not the synthetic stuff that everybody has, but real camphor. Very fragrant, very special. But as soon as you expose it to the air, it begins to evaporate. So you keep it in a closed, airtight box. And if you want to show to everyone, oh, I have this beautiful camphor, very quickly it will evaporate and disappear. So it's the same way with feelings, deep feelings of prema and love. You don't go around expressing, oh, I had this realization, oh, I had this sporty, oh, this and that. You don't. You can share things confidentially with close friends, but you don't broadcast, right? Because as soon as you broadcast, it disappears. It goes away, right? So generally, the people that broadcast are people that are doing it for an ulterior reason, right? Sometimes they're called dharma dvajis. They're not even dharmic. But they wave the flag of dharma, they speak of dharma in order to control others, right? So, she did not disclose anyone. She showed equal affection to both Vishvambara and Nityananda, both her sons. On regaining his external consciousness, Nityananda put on his clothes, and Mother Saci gave him some milk sweets to eat. Right? Sandesh she gave him. Srila Prabhupada really liked Sandesh. He really liked Sandesh. And they prepared it. He taught the devotees in the West how to prepare it. You don't get it like this in India, usually. India, it's usually kind of crumbly and dry. But we prepared it in such a way that it was moist and creamy, solid, but moist and creamy. And if you try to take the whole thing at once, it would just stick in your throat. It tastes so good, you try to... But Srila Prabhupada, if you've ever seen him eat these sweets on some videos or live, they'd bring him a plate and he'd take it, and he would just kind of, when his hand got this far from his mouth, he'd just kind of go like that, and it would fly into his mouth like that. He'd take Sandesh. He loved Sandesh. And, our Nityananda knew how to make Sandesh. She made them in Bangalore like that, very creamy. Takes a lot of time to do that, though. You have to make a very soft, rich, fatty paneer or curd, and then you have to press it and roll it until it becomes completely smooth, and putting it under very gentle heat so just the right amount of moisture leaves it. It's time-consuming and very meticulous, but when you get that kind of Sandesh, oh, so nice. So Nityananda, I'm thinking Prabhupada liked Sandesh because he was so close to Nityananda, right? The preacher on behalf of Lord Nityananda. Okay. So, alas, said, so she gave 5 pieces of Sandesh to Nityananda. He ate one and threw away the rest. Alas, said Mother Saci, why did you throw them away? Nityananda replied, why did you give them to me all at once? Mother Saci said, I have no more sweets. What will you eat now? Nityananda replied, if you desire, you will certainly find them. So what was her anxiety about? What will I serve you now? She wasn't thinking for herself. She was thinking, oh, now I have nothing else to give you. Oh, that was her anxiety. And to her amazement, Mother Saci found those 4 pieces of Sandesh intact within the room. Right? Mother Saci asks, where did this Sandesh fall? How did they come within the room? I guess he just heaved them and, he couldn't see. It looked like he threw them out the door outside, but somehow or other they were in the room. Being struck with wonder, Mother Saci removed the dust from the Sandesh and happily came outside. Oh, he was outside. All right, he was sitting outside. He just threw it, but it appeared in the house. So she happily came outside with those 4 Sandesh, and on returning, Mother Saci saw that Nityananda was eating those same sweets. And she said, dear son, where did you get those? She thought she had the 4, then he had 4 more. Nityananda replied, these are the same sweets I threw away. Seeing your distress, I brought them back. So Mother Saci is now completely bewildered, right? Seeing these wonders, Mother Saci contemplated, who is that person who does not know the glories of Nityananda? Mother Saci said, oh, Nityananda, why do you deceive me? I know you are the Supreme Lord. Therefore, please remove your illusion. So she's thinking like that. Mahaprabhu has already revealed his Mahaprakash. Nityananda is therefore also known. The speciality of Mahaprabhu's Naimiktik Leela is that he is simultaneously known as the Yuga Avatar, but also the Yuga Avatar completely absorbed in the mood of a devotee. So he wants to be treated like that as well to fulfill his desire to taste the prem of the devotee, and especially Srimati Radhika, the topmost. But that duality is there. That duality is there. That's the Naimiktik duality. In the eternal Navadvip, just like with Krishna, the pastime of taking birth is not there. The youthful scholarly pastimes are not there. He's also always at this eternal age, right? And the idea of him being God, it would not be there. It would interfere. But in this case, both are there. But it adds a certain confusion and sweetness for the devotees as well, because they know he's God. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada says, in order to deceive the living entities, the Supreme Lord provides various kinds of illusion in their thinking. The conditioned souls then accept temporary objects as eternal. This is the influence of the Supreme Lord. So in these Leela, Yogamaya, it's Yogamaya that's acting here. And it bewilders them in order to produce very sweet, incomprehensible pastimes. Krishna also did that, right? So if she's saying like that, we know you're the Lord, you can do this. But if she knew it, then why would she be so bewildered and astonished? She would immediately think, oh, this is just the power of Nityananda, he's God. But generally, she's not thinking like that, but sometimes they are aware of that, and sometimes not. So, in the mood of a child, Nityananda tried to grab Mother Saci's feet, but she ran away. The characteristics of Nityananda are unfathomable. For pious persons, they are beneficial, and for sinful persons, they create obstacles. The purport: fortunate living entities obtain beneficial results from the characteristics of Nityananda. Unfortunate living entities achieve obstacles in their activities due to their misconceptions. So Nityananda is eminently merciful, right, in every way. Anyone who shows any degree of favorable mood towards him gets the greatest benediction. Even those who seem opposed to him, he's so merciful. But if you are, recalcitrant, stubborn, deliberately, continually, then there'll only be obstacles. There's another story that will probably come up later about the thieves that tried to steal the ornaments of Lord Nityananda and what happened to them, how they had to be tortured for many days. And some others where we'll let those unfold. But we're very fortunate because we have favorable mood to Nityananda, so don't hesitate at any time to pray to him. It feels like, oh, when will that mercy fall upon us? But just praying even once guarantees success. It may take longer than we had hoped. It may seem that our bhakti is eternally covered, but the wheels are in motion. And we're going to see that anyone who comes in contact with Nityananda has the greatest opportunity. He says here, Nityananda ninda kore ye papishta jana ganga ulta hare deki kore palayana. Even the Ganges, the Ganga, runs away from a person who blasphemes Lord Nityananda. Purport: being unable to realize the actual identity of Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, many conditioned souls who are bound by the wheel of karma from time immemorial blaspheme him. But on seeing such offenders who commit offenses through their blasphemy, the Ganga who takes away one's sinful reactions runs away from them rather than destroying their sins. Even the Ganga, who's so merciful to everybody, doesn't want any contact with those kind of persons. If the Supreme Lord becomes angry, then Nityananda, who is manifested as the spiritual master, can remove the Lord's anger. But if one commits an offense at the feet of the spiritual master, who is the manifestation of Nityananda, it is extremely difficult to nullify such an offense. Right. So, goes on to say, Vaishnavera Adiraj Ananta Ishvara Nityananda Mahaprabhu Shesha Mahidhara. Lord Nityananda is Ananta Shesh, the supreme controller, the maintainer of all the universes, and the king of the Vaishnavas. Wow. Lord Nityananda is Ananta Shesh, the supreme controller, the maintainer of all the universes, and the king of the Vaishnavas. So Saci Prabhupada explains that Lord Ananta is described in the Matsya Purana as follows. I'm not going to read all the Sanskrit because many verses. So this verse from the Matsya Purana, since the demigods, such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and the powerful effulgent sages, could not reach the end of your glories, therefore, O Lord, you are known as Ananta. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 18th chapter of the first canto, Yo Nanta Shaktir Bhagavan Ananto Mahadgunadvad Yadananta Mahu, the personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Ananta. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 30th chapter, it is stated, Nahyantas tad vibhutinam sonanta iti giyase, because there is no end to your opulences, you are celebrated by the name Ananta. In the Rig Veda, Ananta Shakti Paramo Ananta Virya Sonantaha. He who possesses unlimited energies, who is the supreme controller of all controllers, and who possesses unlimited strength, is known as Ananta. So, next verse. Yete kene Nityananda Chaitanya Ranahe tabusa charana dhana rahuka hridaye. Whatever relationship Nityananda may have with Lord Chaitanya, I still keep his lotus feet within my heart. I offer respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas and pray that Nityananda, who is non-different from Balaram, may always remain my master. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Chanda Jana Vrindavana Dasa Tachu Padajuge Gana. Accepting Sri Nityananda or Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. And thus ends the English translation of the Gaudiya Bhasya commentary on Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter 11, entitled The Characteristics of Nityananda. So how does he close this? He says, he more or less indicates, I've just described the inconceivable characteristics of Lord Nityananda, some of them appearing very strange, contradictory, very difficult to understand. Even with Mahaprabhu, what is their relationship? It's very difficult to understand. But whatever relationship Nityananda may have with Lord Chaitanya, I still keep his lotus feet within my heart. So if some people might say, oh, Lord Chaitanya was criticizing Lord Nityananda, is displeased with him, he's saying, no. These are all incredible Leela. And whatever it appears, Lord Nityananda, I am keeping him in my heart always, 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 always. He's the guru of Vrindavan Das Thakur. And also, he offers obeisance to the feet of the Vaishnavas, all of the Vaishnavas, and prays that Nityananda, who is non-different from Balaram, may always remain my master. So the servants of Lord Nityananda are the Vaishnavas, and he's praying to them and offering obeisance to them as well. This is the attitude of a devotee. A devotee can be seen by the way in which they relate to Vaishnavas. Now, Uttam Adhikaris, they're the topmost, they'll see everyone the same, right? But the Madhyam, Shuddha Bhaktas, but Madhyam, they will recognize and honor Uttam Vaishnavas and Vaishnavas and serve them with great love. Vaishnavas that are also on the Madhyam plane, they will have deep, deep friendship with, deep affectionate and respectful, intimate dealings. And for those that are less developed or ignorant but innocent, they show great mercy and affection for, helping them. And those who are envious, they disregard, they just neglect. And so when the word Vaishnava is stated here, it means at least Madhyam. Not Vaishnava. Kanishta is Vaishnava Prai. It's a semblance of a Vaishnava. they're performing the preliminary practices of Vaishnav Dharma. They may have some faith in the deity, they may have some recognition of Vaishnavas, but they don't have the requisite faith, and they're not chanting Shuddhanam yet. So, and they have many material attachments and anartas, right? So, Vaishnavas are those who are madhyam. They are of the nature of they have Vaishnav qualities. And Vaishnava Tara are those who have significant amounts of those qualities, right? And Vaishnava Tama are those who are topmost Vaishnava. So, there's Kanishta Vaishnava in that sense means one who's begun the path of Shuddha Bhakti. He's begun chanting Shuddhanam. And when they become more advanced and into the level of asakti, right, very close to Bhav, then they're becoming, Vaishnavatara, and then when they become into Bhav, then the very gradations of Vaishnavatama, topmost, because then they are absorbed internally all the time in service, right? So he's offering respectful obeisance. He's always feeling himself the servant of the Vaishnavas. And unless we cultivate that, but these people that I'm living with in the mat, they're not Vaishnavas yet, they're Kanishtas. And they do this and they do that. They bother me, they annoy me. How can I live with such persons? We all think that throughout the day. Oh, this guy, this knucklehead, what has he done? But the way to develop in devotion is to be able to not detect faults, but to say, oh, but they're doing this, they're doing that. Oh, they're serving so nicely. I wish I could serve so nicely. One time at Bug Bazaar Gaudiya Math, during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, when Pujari had left his body. And this Pujari was known as a disagreeable person. He was always causing trouble for everybody. And, there are those kind of people, annoying, criticizing, doing things, And when he left, really, the devotees in the mat were kind of relieved, actually. And they were sitting together talking about him. Oh, yeah, he's like this, he's like that. And they're recounting all of his faults. And then they didn't realize, but just outside, a little bit outside their circle, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was there. And he said, oh, but he always kept his cloth very clean. And why did he say that? He took probably the thing that's most insignificant in terms of Vaishnava behavior. He was very clean. He was a Pujari, and he kept his cloth, and he was very clean. And that's what he brought out. But what happened in the hearts of the devotees is, oh, Guru Maharaj, he's seeing the best of all of us, right? Anybody can find a fault. Anybody can do that. Spots on the moon even. But to detect the good quality, then you don't really so much have a problem. Then you can ignore the bad stuff or tolerate it or not worry about it. But if you see the good quality, that makes you happy, right? Oh, but they're doing this, they're doing that. Gurudev used to do that. I know that when I was living outside and I'd go to Badger for the program, I remember one time, even before that, there was I had met him in 97, and then I went to Parikram, and then in 97 in the fall, in Vrindavan, and then in 98, he was coming to the San Francisco Bay Area, and one devotee, Radhakanta, wanted to host a festival, so he rented an entire monastery. That's what they did. No more monks were living there, so they'd rent it out for events. And so we had so many rooms, kitchen, big hall, like used to be their church. Now we used it. And so it was very grand, beautiful place for Gurudev to speak. And all the devotees being hosted with rooms and everything, big kitchen, wonderful prasad. And so I didn't realize, but some devotees would go every day to have darshan with Gurudev. I didn't know about that, you know. I was just, my job was to make sure all the devotees got rooms and just make sure they're taken care of, you know. I thought, very simple job, you know. And also to collect the money. Because, you know, Radhakanta told me, yeah, you're not going to get a dime. These devotees, they travel everywhere, you know. They always skate on the festival, you know. They're not going to give any money. I said, okay. But even though they said, if you want this kind of room, you know, it's this, that, that. So there was a schedule of fees. So I went around and I got everybody rooms and I told them the fees and I squeezed it out of them, you know, squeezed it out of them and collected almost as much as it was for the festival. And he was astonished. You know, he said, "What? How'd you get all that out of him?" I just told him that, you know, okay, you don't have to pay the fees, but, you know, Radhakanta was going to give whatever fees that you gave, he's going to give that as a donation to Gurudev. So if you want to keep it for yourself, go ahead, you know. But, but it was meant to go to Gurudev, all these fees, you know, not to recover his pocket. And they went, oh, okay, and they all gave. Anyway, so I had a very small service, right? But then they told me later that they were talking about different people, and they just mentioned my name. I was doing this, and Gurudev said, "Oh, he is doing so much for me." And I thought, he doesn't even know me. How does he even know me? You know, he had met me, but, you know, Bhagavat, they know everybody. They meet you one time, they could see you 15 years later, and they'll know everything. And I heard that, and I thought, oh my God, whatever insignificant speck of service I'm doing, he's knowing and he's accepting. And I thought, that is a lesson. That's how you should see Vaishnavas, right? Not by what they are not, but what they're trying to be. So he's offering respectful obeisance to the Vaishnava, and we should understand that in different ways. And then he closes again, accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul. I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. So we also want to accept Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul. And these chapters, one after the other, are a guide, because the speciality of Mahaprabhu, his incarnation, and Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya, they not only come to teach as Bhagavan, but they come to teach in the role of devotees, and all of their eternal associates, the etiquette, how devotees behave. It's the manual of how to be a Vaishnava, this Chaitanya Bhagavat. It has the speciality of showing so many interactions between devotees and how Mahaprabhu deals with his devotees in love, how Nityananda deals, how all the Vaishnavas deal with each other. It's very exceptional work. So we'll start tomorrow with chapter 12, and then Monday it's the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. So we'll hear about him. So tomorrow again, chapter 12, the glories of Nityananda. So, offering our obeisance at the lotus feet of our spiritual master, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, our Shiksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis assembled, and wherever they were, all that ever were and ever will be, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.